Hi, welcome to the Long Time Podcast. We're talking about Tsuritama. You know, it was an anime by A1, the animation studio, not the steak sauce.
I fucking hate you. I was even like, no, don't do the fucking joke, and you did the joke.
You just did it. What's the matter with you?
This week we talk about Tsuritama and not fucking steak sauce.
There's not even any steaks in the show.
No, I was actually sad about that. They even grilled fish, and it looked so good.
Yeah.
So, hey, we're talking about Tsuritama.
And steak sauce. He's gonna murder me before this is over.
Which was a good anime. Had problems, but it was good. It was a really feel-good anime, which I enjoyed immensely. I opened up the first episode at work, and I was like, oh man! Like even the intro, like the opening for the show, which is like this like alt rock kind of feeling thing with a lead male singer. I was like, this is pleasant. This is nice. And it just kept that feeling the whole way.
It really knows how to get you hyped for a good time. Then like hype. It's more like hype.
Yeah.
For a good old time watching a couple of people go around fishing, and then all of a sudden Aquaman joins them. That was what I referred to the alien as the entire time in my notes, by the way, for the show. I was
Aquaman.
Was Aquaman for you?
Yeah, I was like, he's alien Aquaman. I was thinking to myself, if you think Aquaman is shit, you haven't seen Tsuritama. Because he's fucking awesome the entire time.
Well, he's a better Aquaman because Aquaman can't mind control people with water.
That's true.
He also doesn't carry a water gun.
Also, he doesn't carry a water gun. He carries a trident. So, basically, the synopsis for the show is... and this is probably going to be a short podcast because there wasn't too much substance. It was very simple. It was a very simple show. But basically, it's an alien comes to try and capture another alien. So he recruits a bunch of people who like to go fishing, and one guy who didn't know he liked to go fishing until he was forced to go fishing, and now he likes fishing. And then they just go fishing. And that's the entire show.
I mean,
you've effectively done it.
It sounds like the show sounds pretty dry, but it was actually pretty wet. You know, like
oh my fucking gosh, Matt.
Okay, we're done. I'm done.
Please.
No more steak sauce jokes.
You would better lock your doors.
They're already locked.
Listen, we just had a wonderful conversation before the podcast about quality in the anime reviewing industry.
Hey.
And you're dropping that quality real quick.
No, we're not dropping the quality.
So
this is enriching the conversation.
So
it is.
Let's get back on track. How about that? So basically, what is there really to say about this anime? It was pretty simple. It was like, it's kind of a coming of age story where a guy who suffers from serious anxiety, overcomes that anxiety, which was cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels like initially, to me, Matt mentioned this like before we started recording, but it kind of initially sort of felt like a sports anime almost, like sort of in the sense that like I kind of got like a Ace of Diamond or Prince of Tennis kind of vibe, like aside from like without having weird names for your castings or things like that.
Right.
But in that it's like, oh my god, this fishing. What is this? It's stirring something in me.
Yeah, and then the entire time, like they spend great detail explaining how to fish the entire time, and like everybody's like really into it in the show. They're just like, oh yeah, jerking and reeling, which I thought was fucking hilarious the entire time. I want to point out, by the way, according to my log of the names of the episodes. I think one of the titles it was like episode 4 was
angry jerking.
Sorry,
discouraged jerking.
Discouraged jerking, which is just kind of like a slow jerk. He's really sad the entire time.
You know, you were just talking about the quality.
I'm just saying.
I mean,
and
But
what
yeah,
can you
it
do?
was they go into detail with a lot of the fishing stuff, which I thought was cool. I've gone fishing before, and like in Boy Scouts I used to I like they had whole fishing things, which I didn't care that much for, but I went a couple of times and it was cool to actually be like, oh, I know that, yeah, I know that, and that was neat. So if you're like into fishing in some way, or just the ocean, which by the way, this show had like so many wonderful feelings.
oh my
Like
gosh,
the soundtrack kept doing this like really cool thing where it had like solo. It wasn't a ukulele, but it was a smaller guitar, so it was ukulele sounding. And then they kept on having this tone and atmosphere of just being by the ocean, which was it was like I was playing Sunshine, like over
Yeah,
again, Super Mario Sunshine.
I actually noticed that as well, and I actually put that exact thing in my note. It felt exactly like Super Mario Sunshine.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
give me that sweet Delfino Harbor.
Yeah,
It was so pleasant. Like even the
Oh,
opening
Delfino.
had that because the opening had this whole thing where the circles come out and like it starts out as in a grayscale and then all of a sudden color just fills the world and I was like, oh man, that's so nice.
yeah. I remember reading somewhere that the opening is actually a mix of genres. I don't remember what the genres were, which would actually be really helpful to remember. I remember the least useful part, but I think it was one of those genres from the 80s. I don't
Like
really remember.
ska.
Not like ska. It's like
Was
I
it a
wanna
Japanese genre? Because it seems like it takes a lot of hints from like traditional Japanese folk music.
yeah. That was one of the things that it mixed. And I don't want to say it was disco because that's not. It's funk, maybe is what it was. Someone
I
said
don't
it
know
was
if I'm
like
getting the funk's vibe, but
that's what somebody said. I don't know how much that holds up. So
It's
I don't
just
know
really
much about
good.
music. It's just a good
It
opening,
just-
though.
yeah.
Either I don't really care what it's made of.
It didn't have enough high no. So
Oh my god, no, we don't need any of that.
yeah, there was a recurring theme throughout the show, if you've never seen it, where like there's just dancing, and like whenever it starts getting into like the mind control thing, where like some of the aliens can mind control people with water, it's just the way they mind control people is just all of a sudden they're like, and then like zone out, and then they just start dancing, and then it starts
kind
getting
of,
creepy because
kind of like
they're like cresting a hill, and all of them are like just dancing, and then the people in the bus are like, they're right behind us, fuck.
but it's not even like dancing morning like exercise aerobic kind of dancing sort of
Yeah.
stuff going
Yeah,
on.
that's
It's
kind of what it is.
It's pretty simple.
'Cause that's like the only thing that I can really think to compare it to. Like, but I mean, it's not even like you're jazzercising either. But whatever.
So earlier, like we mentioned that, like there's this thing about how the main character is like coming of age. He's overcoming his anxiousness and like developing into a much better character.
Kid
Um,
has some extreme anxiety.
He has some extreme anxiety.
Like crippling anxiety.
And I love how they show that in the show, which I'm showing a gif of right now, of like anytime that he's feeling anxious, like there's this recurring joke that his face gets like super red and then he looks angry like a demon mask, or I can't remember what they're actually called in Japanese culture.
Owning.
Yeah. And then, but like what I thought was really cool is that animation wise, every time that happened, it showed him like all of a sudden ocean water just comes up from below him and like starts actually drowning him, and he's drowning in his anxiousness, which I thought that's a really clever idea. I thought that was a really great way of representing like somebody who has an anxiety disorder, like how they feel. They're just choking and they're drowning and they can't move. And I thought that was really cool. I also thought it was cool that the ways that he overcame it, like how they animated that. So, for instance, the GIF that I'm showing right here is him like when he gets the first bite on his fishing pole, and like he was feeling anxious and nervous, and all of a sudden, like it physically pulls him out of his anxiety, and he's suddenly in the moment again, and he's trying to reel in the fish. And I was like, that's clever. I got to give him props for that. That was really cool animation on their part.
And it's really nice because Yuki's anxiety does stem from a lot of panic from being in the moment and things of this nature, and the direct thing that Natsuki says, Natsuki, his fishing friend slash mentor, says like when he gets pulled out of this like, cube of water, says don't panic or you're going to lose the fish or something of this nature. And so it's this very kind of nice sort of dual idea of the not panicking sort of thing, because in one sense it's like, oh yeah, well shit, I'm going to lose this sea bass, but on the other hand it's also like, hey, like just chill, it's okay,
Yeah, like
like
Natsuki is just telling
try not.
Yuki, just chill, calm down, and try to like breathe.
Yeah. So I mean, even though it's not as simple as, hey, dude with anxiety, it's cool, chill.
Right,
Hey.
and I liked that the show showed that there was a natural progression where even towards the end of the show he still has trouble with anxiety. It's just not as
Yeah.
pronounced, and he kind of over the course of they said like over the summer and then even past the summer into the next semester of school, like
Yeah.
he slowly started to deal with it a lot better because he developed friendships and he developed something that he wanted to do with his life, and through that he's starting to combat that anxiety that he has.
Hmm.
Yep. So it
Yeah.
was also kind of interesting too in that because I noticed something that Yuki would do a lot early on in the show is that um, when some new concept would come up, he was very quick to go to his phone and he would like, Google whatever the term was or something of that nature instead of just asking someone about it. And about like midway through the show, I never saw him do that again. He would actually just talk with people. And so I
Yeah,
felt like it was this very subtle thing that wasn't actually discussed in the show at all, but it was like this really neat sort of like kind of little character progression. I
Yeah.
yeah,
liked it. It
and
was subtle.
I actually like that. That was pretty cool.
yeah, and I like how it wasn't just that they represented it with. It was like a couple of different things. Like in the very beginning of the show, he literally doesn't talk, and
Mm,
so like all the conversations that we're getting back and forth between the characters is kind of interesting because like he thinks something in his head, and then people are just reacting around him, and for some reason it like for particularly when it comes to certain individuals like Haru the alien like seem to just be able to read his face, and so like he'll say something in his head, and then Haru actually directly like has a conversation with that thought because he can just read it on his face. But like there was a lot of just internal monologue in the beginning of the show, and then he starts to actually talk as the episodes go on, and I think it's a part of that idea where he kept on having to look things up on the phone because he was too nervous to ask somebody, and so like and too nervous to talk, and so like as the episodes go, he starts instead of looking at the phone like you said, he just asks the person directly because he has a lot more confidence and he feels more comfortable with that person. I was like,
right.
that is. I will say this: it's as pretty straightforward as this show is. I think their concept of dealing with anxiety, and specifically in his case, an anxiety disorder, was really good. I thought that was really well done
Yeah,
on that part.
I feel like they nailed the tone. They definitely knew what they were going for, and they definitely hit the mark,
Yeah.
Yep.
Um. Now,
tonal wise.
I don't know if they ever really went into too much detail about why he has anxiety. Like they never really talked about what might have caused it initially.
Well,
Um.
I mean, they never specifically talked about anything, but I think a lot of it can be inferred with, for example, he seems to not like have any sense of memory of his parents or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
He was always moving one place or the
Hmm.
other, so he was
Yeah,
never
they
able to settle
emphasized that.
down, and like he was never able to make friends or anything of that nature. He has this kind of almost obsessive habit of replaying the events of the whole day and then only later being able to reflect on them. So again, it's not explicitly stated, but there is a lot that can be inferred about
Yeah.
where his stress and anxiety might have stemmed from.
And I definitely thought that as because I know we talked about this on the podcast before, but like the show kind of segments itself into like three different sections. The first section is basically just a sports anime, like we said. The section after that, there's a lot of drama, but it's not bad drama. It's just
Family drama.
family drama, which I was glad that they addressed it because they kind of hinted at it for a while, and finally it just came to a head. And then once everyone overcomes their drama, that's when everyone starts working together to overcome the major problem throughout the entire show, which is trying to catch this this alien sea monster that's like causing trouble for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Which was I thought that was a good way of segmenting it. Like you guys said before the podcast. I can't remember who initially said it, but it was like basically it because of how segmented it was, it kind of felt like 3 different animes with the same characters.
Like, I noted this right before I started watching this. I think it was like a middle of first episode or second episode. It was near the very beginning. I was like, what would make this anime better? Just a little bit of drama, just a little bit. And then when I started seeing them starting to do it, I was like, okay, I'm on board now.
Yeah, I was like, all right, I'm good. And then all of a sudden, it just genre changes into like a sci-fi show. For the last
and then
half.
I was like, oh, okay, well that's a little bit different, but all right, I'm gonna go with it anyway. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't like I don't know. I liked the sci-fi portion. I thought it was really goofy and really cool. And
I liked
didn't
it too.
mind where it went. It made sense. I didn't really have this problem with it. I just thought it flowed really weirdly from family drama to sea monster taking over the world.
Yeah, it's interesting in that I don't have a problem with the way it flowed in one sense because it didn't take itself like super seriously.
It never took itself seriously because it was always even if in dramatic moments there were still characters or just specific scenes after those moments to kind of bring you back to that feel good feeling. And I was like,
even if an episode does end with, say, a beloved character getting murked by a missile,
that was great. 10 out of 10.
Which coming into this still 8 or 9 episodes in, being like, hey, this is a fishing anime, and then seeing that and being like,
yeah,
okay.
I wanted to talk about that later because that was just a fantastic moment because basically you have this entire feel good anime and everybody's happy. It's very slice of lifey, except for with this undertone of like something big's gonna happen throughout the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
And then it finally gets into like the more sci-fi elements where they're like, all right, we need to directly deal with this like alien sea monster. And then they're like, all right, we need to get a fishing rod so we can catch it. And the whole point of the show is fishing. And so he goes back to the fishing shop and he's like, I got it. And then like he's on the phone with like the love of his life and she's like, wow, you really are dependable, and just blows up the entire fishing shop.
And
like the happy music just ends.
I just want to point out that this wasn't like a small, like compact missile. This was like a fucking huge missile.
Yeah, this was like, actually a government military grade missile that was launched into the city and just specifically and only specifically like and only this shop. It just destroyed the shop that this one character was in, and that was...
Which, now that I think about it, is probably single-handedly the most carnage in the entire show.
Because it's too much of a feel-good slice of life anime, and then all of a sudden we have a missile.
Yeah,
a military-grade missile.
By the way, I just want to point out that missile probably would have nuked the entire island under normal circumstances.
Well,
it seemed like more of a precision
not necessarily
strike
for the size of that one, because it looked more like a like ship to ship kind of thing.
Yeah, that was
supposed to.
That was very much
like naval.
It was very much a ship-to-ship precision strike.
Now, the big old freaking ICBMs that the rest of Duck had.
But
yeah, they did have an ICBM. That's true.
A fun fact: I didn't Google Maps it. I found a picture of where someone did Google Maps the realistic size of this island, and it's no bigger than like a suburban neighborhood. It is not very big. Like,
well, okay, like, maybe it would have caused a little bit more destruction.
Like,
yeah, How did they map that out? I mean, that's
Like they just
Is it
just
is it an
further
actual
design.
got the
place?
little they had the little like size thing in the corner, like it said 500 feet for like an inch on the map,
Oh,
and the
okay.
island was only like in lengthwise it was only like 2,000 feet. And I was like, what?
Right.
And I was like, that missile would have taken out like most of the island, not just the shop.
Maybe not that one missile, but it definitely would have taken out way more than that shop.
Yeah.
Which it was funny too because like it has this suddenly like moment where like that one girl that was in love with him just drops to her knees and she's horrified, and then the next episode starts off and immediately the first thing they do is, yeah, he's totally alive and fine. He's a little beat up, but he's fine. Because it just wants to immediately go back to that feel good like anime that it had before. And I was like, then why did you launch a missile at one of your characters in the first
Yeah,
place?
it's just like the show is really not good with like any sense of cliffhangers at all, because that happened, and then there was the part with family drama, and it was like, oh my god, my sister's gone or something.
Yeah,
And then
she ran
something
away
in
from home and they were searching the entire island. They couldn't find her. It was
then
horrifying. And then
3 minutes into the next episode,
3 minutes
oh,
into
she's fine.
they
Yeah.
did that for several cliffhangers in the show. And I guess it's because they never truly wanted to be a drama-filled show, but they just wanted drama elements. But
So
they
it's
always had a problem of fixing their drama really early. It was just
Yeah.
like, we had a problem, cliffhanger, wait till next episode, and then next episode comes around, they're like,
And
fixed.
Probably would work better if it was airing and not
Yeah.
Blu-ray
I think it would have
format.
upset me more if it was airing and I couldn't get to the next episode, because like if it was airing and then we finally get into the next
And
episode,
then 3 minutes into the next episode,
and
yeah, that would have been kind of
30
disappointing.
seconds
and then
into the
this
next
happens
episode
like
to
3
fix it.
times, and it's just like, I've had enough of your shit, A1 pictures.
Right. It seems a little too forced. Luckily, though, like the show, when it does do its like more dramatic elements, like the whole family thing, where she runs away and stuff like that, like it did it well. It never got to a point where I was like, you're just really trying to pull for some
Yeah, it
tears
didn't
right
feel
now. aren't you?"
forced.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, even though there are issues with some of the pacing and things of that nature, and some of like the forced sort of drama elements, and
I would say
few
forced
sections,
cliffhangers, and that's it.
yeah, there's it. The actual like emotions and relationships in the show like feel really genuine in
Yes.
a sense,
Yes.
and it's kind of refreshing in that sense, because they have, for some characters, fleshed out these fairly reasonable, sort of real-ish characters, aside from some of their weird eccentricities. But
Yeah, so let's
it-
let's actually talk about that a little bit, because I know I have a really long thing here. Because the two major themes that I found in the show was dealing with the loss of someone in your family, and then the other theme was the whole problem with anxiety that we talked about before. And all of the drama in the like drama arc of the show directly dealt with the loss of someone in your family, or just not knowing someone who was your family.
Right.
And I thought that was really, really well done. I thought that was probably like one of the best parts of the show,
Yeah.
because like you said, everything felt so genuine. So like,
so kick us off with your big thing then.
well, the big thing that I said, I was like, there's really good themes with dealing with loss in this one. So for instance, our main character Yuki is raised by the best fucking grandma in the entire damn world. Like she is
11
like,
out of 10.
she is the nicest person. She is always understanding and caring for the people around her. Doesn't matter who it is. They adopt an alien and she's totally okay with it. In fact, it was her idea, and then she's completely caring for that person, even though she like met him like 2 weeks ago. She's a great person, but the problem with her family is that like it's just her. There is no mom and dad, and we're led to believe that Yuki, the main character of the show, his mom and dad left him at a very early age, that he doesn't even remember them. And it hurts him, and it's kind of alluded to that that's where some of his anxiety comes from, is the fact that he never knew his parents, and mixing that with the fact that his grandma, I guess due to health concerns, is the reason why they keep moving, because she keeps ending up in hospitals, and then he spends time alone in the house, is what they said. Which, I mean, that's terrible. Um, but like because of different health concerns or something like that, the grandma keeps moving, and so he keeps moving with the grandma, and he's never actually able to sit down in one town and make friends. So it just really doesn't help any of the anxiety that he already has. And they, I thought the drama during that arc was really good because he finally came to terms with the fact that no, I may not know my parents, but he turns to his grandma and he says, "But you're the best parents I've ever had. You're the best mom and dad that I could have, and I love you for it." And he kind of comes to terms with that. And then along with that, he also talks about directly in the show. He talks about how he was able to do a lot of healing thanks to her and thanks to finally developing good friends in his life for the first time in his entire life. And he's able to overcome a lot of that anxiety. And I was like, "Oh, you're telling this directly to my face, show, but I still appreciate it." And then the other thing that I put down here is specifically Natsuki's family, which I think is probably the best part of that arc, because Natsuki, his mother died, and they even have a shrine right there next to the kitchen that they're always visiting, and they're constantly talking about their mom because she was very, very, very much loved. And there's a lot of interesting things going on there that I'm sure a lot of people in different families have actually gone through, where it's like Natsuki still wants to remember his mother, and he never wants to give up on her. So he's very angry with his father, who his father dealt with his grief, but decided he wanted to move on. And how he felt like moving on is he found a new love in his life, and Natsuki hates her, even though it's totally not her fault, and she's a wonderful woman, and they show that several times. But it's just the fact that he doesn't want someone to replace his mother. And so he hates her, and he hates his dad for trying to find a new love, and he very clearly shows that he just wants someone in his life again. And then on top of that, he wants to try something new in his life. So they even had like a restaurant, and he wanted to convert the restaurant into a cafe because he felt that would make things better for him. And then in the meantime, while there's these two vying things of like the son hitting the father, and the father wanting to connect with his son but just can't anymore. And on top of that, the youngest daughter of the family like is just trying to keep them all together, and that's how she's dealing with her grief, is that like she just wants to keep the family together, just like mom had them.
Right.
And it all comes to a head because like there's the youngest one makes bracelets for everybody on Natsuki's birthday, and wants to present them to everyone, but then they get into a fight, and during the fight she loses the bracelet that represented their mother. And then she gets angry, and then she runs away from home, and then they spend the entire time working together trying to find her, and through that they all kind of take a look at like their relationship and say, yeah, this is kind of broken and we should do something about that. You know, that was really good. Like I want to say 3 or 4 episode arc. That was 3 probably. It was really good.
It was a little close to 3.
Yeah.
I know I talked at length there, and I didn't let you guys talk. Sorry, but that was really good. I liked that a lot. That was probably like the strong point in the entire show. And none of it felt forced. Everything was genuine, and the way that people reacted, both in their fights and in their feelings towards each other, was super genuine the entire time. And I was like, awesome, good job, A1 Pictures, good job.
Yeah,
show.
They did a good job. More on that in a second. I like how in your description you skipped the most impactful part for me, where Natsuki like fucking slaps his sister.
Oh shit, yeah, he does.
Like I was still scarred about that in the next episode. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because he gets really mad.
That was like the most impactful part for me.
He gets really, really mad with his dad, and he's just fucking had it, and he doesn't want to listen to anyone's shit. And then his younger sibling like loses the bracelet that represents her mother because those two were fighting, so she blames it on her brother, which is like the first time in the entire show that she's ever done that. And she's just kind of held all those feelings in, and she just confronts him and gets really fucking mad. And this guy who's been so supportive of his younger sibling the entire show just slaps her in the face. I was like, oh
yeah,
shit.
that was like, that was fucking
pretty
brutal.
Intense.
Yeah,
I was like, holy shit, like I can't believe they just did that. And then I was like, it doesn't really surprise me that they did that because it made sense. But I was just like, whoa,
It's just they did a really good job of building up Natsuki as like a character that I didn't expect would do that.
Right.
Yeah,
And
they did a really good job of that.
because like they showed him of being like so guarded and shielded with his emotions to the point where having this crazy like momentous overflow of emotions in
Right.
this one like
Short
act
moment.
of passion or something is like, whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
suddenly
All
all
right.
of his emotions
What have you
just
done to him?
completely take over, and then he just is no longer himself. And
It
even
was really
he
intense.
doesn't immediately apologize for it, but you can tell that he hates that he did it, and he just wants to run away. And then when people confront him about it, he like shoves them out of the way because he hates himself for what he's just done. Yeah, that was really good, and they even that specific moment is even referenced in the following episode where they cliffhanger where the younger sibling runs away, because like that entire thing is remedied whenever she runs away and she's just so alone, and she goes to the only spot that she wants to go, which is like one of her favorite spots. She went with her mom. And she's just terribly lonely and sad and so much in grief because of her mother. And then she finally sees her brother, like out of breath, had been searching for her all night and was just terrified. Finally finds her, and they just reconnect right there. And I was like, oh, this is so sweet. Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah.
I felt much better after that.
It was a very satisfying conclusion
Yeah.
to the whole thing, and it just got more satisfying as like the final arc went through, as their family continued to mend.
Right, because it wasn't like, and I have seen this in a couple other animes where like because of bad writing, just they immediately mend and then it's permanently fixed and it's good. And it's no, they even show like the father, and after they take the daughter home, she's exhausted and tired, she falls asleep. The father and the son sit in the kitchen and they say, what do you want to do now? Like what's this that we want to do with our lives? And they both say to each other, it's like, you do what you want and I won't get in your way, meaning that the father can finally move on if he chooses, and then the son can do what he wants instead of doing what the father wants of him. And that was their way of mending, but they never said I'm sorry, they never said I love you. It was just, I'm not going to get in your way. And then
it was progression.
Yeah,
and they're not even still seeing entirely eye to eye after that point.
Yeah,
but it's just an acceptance of like, okay, I realize you have your own life to live. I have my own life to live. You do your thing. And then we do see by the end of the series that they are very much seeing eye to eye.
Right, through the events of like fighting through this terrible typhoon and like this, and then the alien, and then the government coming to try and stop the aliens.
Yeah, because aliens and government missiles will do that to a family.
The whole thing was utterly ridiculous, but at least the reactions of the family and how in the case of a crisis they start coming together more, like that was well done. And
it was.
And through that, by the end of it, whenever the son goes off with the rest of the main cast to try and combat the big bad alien for the final time, like he even says, take care of my sister. It was his own way of saying I love you. He says, take care of my sister, and then it finally shows him like accepting his stepmom for the first time ever too, because he says, and take care of my stepmom. And then she's flabbergasted as well, which I thought was sweet. It was just a wonderful moment. There's so many feel good moments in this show.
Yeah, and
even though some of its scenarios and pacing and such seems like a little weird and out of whack sometimes.
Yeah, from
like
the get-go,
overall,
the show's weird.
It does a good way of like pulling you in and like patting
Reeling
your
you
heart and stuff. Stop.
Yeah. I'm gonna kill you if you keep doing these stupid fucking puns. No,
You're gonna krill him.
So, and that's something that we haven't talked about either, is the weirdness in the show. Like from the first episode, this show is weird. And that's just a continuous tone throughout it. Like the alien comes on, he's got like a triangle halo thing, and then like he has a fish on his head, which by the way, was that fish his sister?
I assumed so.
Yes.
because like the fish was talking to him, and then we just never see the fish again, and then we just see his sister.
The fish referred to him as Nichan.
Right.
Yeah, and we do
Right,
still
right.
we do actually see the fish a couple other times in the show.
Yeah, and then
So-
and then we find out the main big bad guy, spoiler, is a fish. Or at least he looks like a fish. But yeah, there's just this tone of weirdness to it, which was intentional because we're talking about aliens, of all things. Not only aliens, but aliens that are Aquaman, which is just the weirdest thing in the world.
Fish aliens.
Fish aliens.
Yep.
And then they, as the series continues, there's still that weird theme where like the alien guy acts completely insane the entire time, and then has a few good moments where we clearly show that he's actually not like just some dumb kid, which is kind of how he acts. He acts like a younger brother throughout most of the show. And then he has these few moments where he actually shows that he is kind of a little wise. It's just he acts the fool. But like because he's acting the fool all the time, there's like so many moments where it's just really weird. He shows up for class and he starts shooting people with a water gun that mind controls them. And then all of a sudden, like, the main character's dancing with him out of nowhere. And then, like, I also thought because the main character has those moments in the show where, like, he closes his eyes and tries to look back on what happened during the day and, like, put it together and put his feelings together because of his anxiety and his problems, he can't really do that in the moment. That was really weird, too, because, and this isn't a pun, it was a film reel that showed up. And then it just like flashed between a whole bunch of stuff that had happened in the day, and it was like really dramatic out of nowhere. He would close his eyes, all of a sudden it's black, no music, and then all of a sudden like of the film reel, and then it's just like flash of something important, and then he like opens his eyes again. I was like, that's oddly dramatic for a show that's mostly goofing off.
Yeah.
But there's just a bunch of like really weird tone things throughout the show, and then the last arc is just completely weird because it's aliens fighting aliens, and there's a whole bunch of sci-fi stuff, and the government comes in, and they're called Duck.
Yeah.
And it had this weird as heck pose. It's like I don't know. I don't even know.
And that's their salute.
Yeah, something like that.
It's like one arm down to make the tail, and then the other arm up to make the head of a duck, and then like duck, and then they have squeaky suits that are waterproof, and then all as they're walking by, it's like squeak it, squeak it, squeak it. Even in the most dramatic moments, you just hear the squeaking of their suits.
And really thinking back to the first episode, it's not like we weren't warned that things were going to go this way because I mean at the very end of the episode, like he literally says, you know, at that point in time, I didn't really think that we were actually going to end up saving the world.
But we did.
Yeah, and I end that first episode and I pause and I'm like,
this is just an animeism.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, because I was thinking, okay, well, he has to actually be an alien, right?
Otherwise, they wouldn't save the world, because it was really weird. Because he's a self-proclaimed alien until probably about like halfway through the show.
Yeah,
right.
But you know, it's like this inevitability, because it's like, oh, this goofy kid says he's an alien. Haha, he can't be an alien, which means he has to be an alien. But
and then he says, we're going to save the world, and like he says save the world, and I'm like, okay, he's probably just a kid pretending to be an alien. And then like the main character immediately monologues and says otherwise, that no, he's totally an alien.
And that's the thing, because it completely does this full psych out, because it's like, okay, well, you like, for the tone that I'm getting of this show, they can't actually like really be saving the world, but
because it was a slice of fucking life.
But by sheer virtue of doing this and setting up this way, like you had to be setting us up for this, right?
Yeah.
And it was real interesting.
To be honest, no, keep going.
I was just gonna say it was gonna be real interesting. I was just gonna keep like Donald Trump in it or something.
Oh,
real good.
Donald Trump.
Let me tell you how good. Super interesting.
Whoa, that's not anime.
Matt, we look over and he's just really orange and has his hair super blonde. And I'm like, whoa.
Jesus.
I mean, like, if you really want to do an anime, you could just do Shingeki no Kyojin. They built a real big wall.
It's Donald Trump, the anime.
Okay.
Okay, back to fishing.
Anyway, what I was gonna say was that I thought it was just kind of one of those things that I've seen a lot of anime, so it's one of those things that like it's just it's there to intrigue, like it's gonna come next.
Yeah, it's
that
the first episode. They want to hook people.
we're gonna save the world. Okay,
It's not
gotta
even
stop.
intentional. I realize it's not intentional.
I know it's not, but it's there. But yeah, I've seen anime do that before, where they're just like, yeah, I didn't know that I was gonna save the world, but now I'm going to. And I thought it was just one of those things that anime kind of does.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I mean, there's about a 50-50 chance here that something's gonna happen or something's not. And I was just like, well, probably not considering the tone of the show. So
That's
and then
interesting
it happened,
too,
I was surprised.
because like with the tone of the show, because let me just point out what the actual genres for this is on like my anime list: slice of life sports anime. With it says comedy sci-fi, but like it's a slice of life sports anime, and that's what I got out of it within the first and second episode. I was like, this is gonna be slice of life, this is gonna be sports. And I like how you immediately thought, well, this most likely isn't gonna mean that they're gonna save the world. And my initial thought was, how the fuck are they gonna save the world? I was like, all right, they're gonna save the world, okay. It was just like, how? They're fishing.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the My Anime List entry there, and I was like, sci-fi? That doesn't really fit with any of this.
You watch it, and you're like, oh, it's a sports anime about fishing. It's just
And I was
four
like,
dudes
so
going
the
on a
guy's
giant
an
fishing trip.
alien that's got to teach him how to fish. Okay, well, that's a little weird, but
Yeah.
this is anime. Anything's possible, so.
Yep.
Um,
It's goofy, real weird, real fun, real
Aaron
heartful
Pictures did a good
sometimes.
job.
Yeah, and the wonderful thing about this is I think this is exactly what I needed, because I was just feeling kind of down at work, and I actually watched most of this at work because we had some downtime. We had some significant downtime, and so I just started up an episode. I was like, oh man, this is like so feel good. I was like, it's making me all warm and cozy inside. Some alien talking about how he's suddenly getting doki doki in his heart. It's just like, oh, this is feel good. This is exactly what I needed.
Yeah, and yeah, the animation was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I mean, it was pretty good for some other animation I've seen from them. So
I thought
The
yeah,
backgrounds were nice.
I did like the backgrounds.
the backgrounds were
and the
really
water.
nice.
I love
Yeah.
the backgrounds of
Yes.
the water.
The water
They
for
went
for
all
entire
out.
thing about ocean. They went all out for that water. Yeah.
Yeah.
No 7.8 here.
Just enough water.
Just enough water.
But yeah, I'd recommend it if you want something that's goofy, weird, and makes you feel good.
Yeah,
It's simple, but it's totally worth it.
it's easy to get into.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a little skeptical, but I mean, I got into it really fast. It just was so nice. You kind of just sink right into it.
Gosh,
It gets
dang
the
it.
comfy hype rolling real quick. What?
I'm just gonna ignore his pun, and we're gonna close out this fucking podcast. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and I guess we'll just see you next time. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.